Hey, welcome to the show, guys. Got a great one lined up for you today. If you'd like to support this channel, there are PayPal and Patreon links in the info box below. Now, before we get to the panel and to the presentation, I'd like to play a Numpty clip and advertise the Numpty clips over on Miggy's channel. And we'll be doing that from here on out. Every new show that comes popping on, we're going to pop up a single Numpty clip. We got a metric ton of them to get through. I don't think we'll ever get through them all. So, here we go. First one. Bob, the pseudoscience fallacy guy. February 2021.
What's the difference between natural and unnatural science?
Unnatural science? That's a new one. Let's see what unnatural means. Abnormal. Lacking human qualities or sympathies. Sounds like the science your fleet of male slobber nurses do on you, Bob. Hey, seen any fists appearing out of nothing lately?
There are no independent and dependent variables in the scientific method, so just drop that.
Ah, shit, hold on.
Man, you really spit the bit on this one, Bob. Bob's claim. There are no independent or dependent variables in the scientific method. As everyone knows, the scientific method is founded upon hypothesis and experiment. So let's see what these actually mean. From Colorado State University, scientific hypothesis. A special kind of prediction that forecasts how the independent variable will affect the dependent variable. From Penn State University, the scientist applies his or her present knowledge to predict the effect of the independent variable on the dependent variable. The prediction is a statement of the expected results of the experiment based on the hypothesis. From California State University, formalized hypotheses contain two variables. One is the independent and the other is the dependent. Not looking good for you right now, Bob. Experiment. From Penn State University. There should be three categories of variables in every experiment. Dependent, independent, controlled. From Physics About Anne-Marie Helmstein, PhD, Biomedical Sciences. When you design an experiment, you are controlling and measuring variables. There are three types of variables. Independent, dependent, controlled. From my tutor, GCSE Chemistry. What are the three main variables within a scientific experiment? Independent, dependent, controlled. From the Institute of Physics, when planning an investigation, students need to identify the variables that they consider significant and then to select the ones they want to look at for cause and effect. If possible, any other variables that will affect the outcome of the experiment need to be kept constant during the investigation. The independent, dependent, and controls. From the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. In an experiment, the independent variable is a variable that is varied or manipulated by the researcher, and the dependent variable is the response that is measured. An independent variable is the presumed cause, whereas the dependent variable is the presumed effect. The IV is the antecedent, whereas the DV is the consequent. From the Office of Research Integrity, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Therefore, in experiments, a researcher manipulates an independent variable to determine if it causes a change in the dependent variable. My word, sir. You see, I can somewhat understand this belly laugher coming from your average rank-and-file globe-tard goober. But you're a self-purported bone doctor. More like bumbling bonehead. This is exponential magnitudes beyond numpty dipshittery. It's tantamount to a self-purported neurosurgeon claiming that there are no brains or spinal cords in the central nervous system. For God's sake, man!
Do you have a degree in science?
Unnatural or natural science?
Who's more qualified to tell you what the scientific method is? You or me, who has a degree?
You're the one. You're the one who just told me there are no dependent and independent variables in the hypothesis.
There's no independent or dependent variable in the scientific method.
Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end. Call it a night, the party's over.
Yeah, it's over for you, Bob. Thanks. So, shout out to Mickey for putting all these clips together in a playlist, and you can see that playlist. There is a link in the description of this video. So, without further ado, over to the panel. How's it going out there, guys? Betty.
Yeah.
How are you, ma'am?
Yeah, good. Good.
Yeah?
Considering being locked up in my own country, in my own home. At night.
You can't go to different countries at night?
No. How about that?
Yeah. Understood.
We got another set of people here on the panel. We got Nathan Oakley.
All right, sir.
We got
How's it going? How's it going?
we got Neil. And I think I have to.
It's here in the flesh, baby.
We got Brian's Logic.
Hey Betty, hey Kiwi, how are things? Hey everyone.
Good, sir.
Hello.
Good.
So that's the one of the numpty on the numpty list.
Yeah, that's a numpty clip from the numpty list. And like I said, you can catch hold of that link down there in the description box. There's quite a bit of numpty clips, and they'll just keep on playing, right? So it's in a playlist. As soon as you hit play the first one, it'll just keep on going. So you could take a shower, you could be working and just hit the first one and just let it go. Get ready. There's some tear-jerking belly laughers in there, including that one. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
So where do you get these people from? Where do you find these gems?
Mostly from, I would say a good portion of them come from Chemo. Shout out to Chemo out there, his under pressure videos, because if I didn't have those, I wouldn't have access to the numptiness. And a lot from Jose JG Retard Show. And then just random stuff that people send me.
I thought that you didn't watch that John Jay whatever.
Jose JG. Well, I need him for my numpty clip, so I have to put up with it until I have it playing in the background. You know, the background noise thing when you're working and stuff. So I keep it on low until something catches my ear. Then I have to halt operations and say, let me rewind that.
I thought that you didn't suffer numpties.
I don't suffer numpties, but I have to suffer through this for my numpty clips. Got to be sacrifices.
Necessary evil.
Oh, also, I would like to bring this up. I almost forgot about this. I've been getting a lot of messages from people complaining that their posts underneath the video are not populating. Let me just tell you this. Welcome to my world. All right? And welcome to the party, because this has been happening to me for the past year. Even on my own channel, If I'm serious, I would say something like 1 out of 5 posts will actually populate and stay there, even on my own channel. So I don't know what's going on, but something's up. Now, that's not to say I didn't block a few numpties, right? Because of the language and their numptiness. I'm not talking about that. But there's a lot of times, I would say 90% of the time, I don't have anything to do with it. Something's up with YouTube. I don't know what they're doing, but there's nothing I could do about it. But I wanted to let everyone know that because I have been getting a few complaints. Okay.
Did you block yourself, maybe?
I did not block myself. So, okay. Yeah, something's up. I don't know if Nathan, I know he doesn't like talking about admin, but...
you do.
Sometimes I do.
Well, talking about admin, maybe you need to shout out your Patreons one time, no?
I shout them out all the time. You can see them up there.
Yeah, but I think it's written down. You have a contract with them.
I do have a contract with them. And I put the contract right up top of the screen. You see that scroll? Oh, you can't see the scroll.
Shout out, not a write out.
Can't see the scroll, right?
Hello?
All right, yeah, you're right. So shout out to the Patreons. Most of these guys have been with me since the beginning. So here we go. Felix Hung, James Mays, Bootman, Eagle Plane and Anchor. What's up there, Matt? Steve Alm, Texas Mike. They're stalwarts. Their guys are stalwarts here, man. I'm telling you. Fireball X, Erwin Janssens. I think that's one of yours, Betty, from the Netherlands. Hope I said that. I hope I said that right. The J is silent, right?
The J is silent. No.
We got Nathan Thompson, Unicorn Laser Eyes, Jesse, Degas. I said that right, Degas, didn't I? Mikhail, Mars, Sampson, and YN. Shout out to you guys, man. Like I said, they're rocks. They don't move.
Yeah. And I saw in the chat that somebody bought a hoodie.
Oh, did they?
From the stores. Yeah.
I have not checked that. You see, we've been in a deep freeze here for about 2 weeks. You wouldn't believe this. Now we can get off.
Yeah, your freezer wouldn't work.
Things, freezers breaking, out there. I mean, really cold. I mean, 20 degrees below zero, frigid, and snow on top of freezing rain. That's what it started with. But anyway,
where are you?
Well, just hold on. Even they were even talking about rolling blackouts even up here. I know they have them in Texas and some in Oklahoma, but they were talking about it up here in Missouri too. Let me just tell you something.
Wow.
Just relax for a second. I'm looking out my back window right now. It's 65 degrees. All the snow's melted. If I walk out there for 10 minutes, I'll get a sunburn. That's how crazy this is. So I just want to go ahead. People wanted to chime in. Go on.
But it's climate change. Wake up.
That's what I was just going to say. Climate change.
Climate change.
Global warming. Global cooling.
Yeah. Flat Earth warming.
Global warming. They weren't here last week.
Yeah, but then it was global freezing. So
it was global. That's exactly right. That's exactly what happened. I mean, it was brutal. The worst I've seen it here in Missouri. Now, I'm used to it up in Pennsylvania. It's just like run of the mill. But you usually don't get that cold, down here. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, only tornadoes, I know.
Yeah, the silly season for tornadoes is coming up. That's what I got to look forward to.
Oh, right.
That's right.
And then the freezing cold combined, that would be good.
Yeah. But there's a lot of people affected by it. Shout out to those guys out in Texas. Sorry to hear. There's some mismanagement going on there, obviously. But their backbone just isn't. They're not prepared for that type of weather. Right? Just not prepared. A lot of people are going to get strung up because of it, but they're just not prepared, not like the northern states. But I feel bad for those guys, especially no water. Right? That's not good.
Are you prepared
for no water?
Yeah,
I got stacks and stacks of water.
Where?
Hey, none of your business.
Sorry, too little, too inquisitive.
Gonna dox myself. Then somebody comes steal my water.
Oh yeah. I understand. Yeah. Okay, well, you got your first super chat already when you did the numpty clips, and it is from a person called Yadu, and there's no message attached.
All right, thank you, Yadu. Let me see what we got going on here. Stream health looks good. I'm not seeing them though. I'm seeing a little bit of the chat, but it's a crapshoot with Studio now. I have to do.
You could see it all.
What's that?
You could see it all now. You had more insight than before.
I can see it. Not all the aspects of Studio are working. It's just some. It's like I said. It's a crapshoot depending on the day. Sometimes when I post a premiere, I know we're talking about admin in here, Nathan. I know you're loving it. I'll post the thumbnail and it'll show up as 3 dots. So I have to do a couple other tilter whirls to get it to post, and then whatever happens after that, right? It's like I said, it's a crapshoot. Sometimes the chat doesn't work. Sometimes the stream health. Now it seems the stream health isn't working.
Well, sometimes it freezes and then it's warm, right?
It keeps you on your toes.
Yeah. All right. So what are we doing today?
We are going to do natural science and the scientific method. I've come to this conclusion that since the ball-tard ball is dead and has been DE dead for a long time, but more recently, really, really dead, I'm going to drop anchor and focus on science, natural science, and the scientific method for the next couple months. Just drop anchor right in here and just not only educate people with it, but have that education spread out so they can start exposing the ballers on that front. Good?
And many other fronts, because science is sort of talked about everywhere.
Yep.
But is it really science?
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Can I say something?
No.
Oh, come on.
No, go ahead.
I think it's much needed because I'm arguing with a guy. He's telling me moon phases are science.
Moon phases are science. What would you say to that, John?
I'd say that right there. You watching the live stream?
Watching the live stream?
Just tell us what's on screen.
It's me on top of a Hummer in a snowstorm, given what I think of the situation.
Alrighty, some gesture, huh?
Yeah, I guess
can I kick off before you get into your actual presentation?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
If you look at what proof is, this is where this all spans from, because what they're utilizing, the words and the language of science, that'd be experiment, hypothesis, theory, all those words, they're using it to claim proof. And if you look at what proof is, one of the definitions says to test by experiment. And that is what we're talking about. When we talk about science, natural science, we're talking about testing things by experiment, observing natural phenomena, and proving things. And that's why it's key detail. That's why this show's here. That's why we're talking about this, because this idea of proving things has been hijacked. So that just so stories with the language of science are taken as proof. And to prove things in this category that we're discussing on the show is to test by experiment. So you have empirical evidence at the end of the process. That's what's been hijacked, and that's why it's needing clarity.
Yes, sir. You're all over. Yep. So that's what I said. We'll just start off because, like I said, there's nothing left of this ball-tard spinning ball-tard. I mean, it's crushed. Everyone knows it that can fog a mirror. But like Neil was saying, and to back up what was Nathan was saying, and we all know this, the ball-tard ballers come out here talking science, and they wouldn't know their ass from a pipe wrench. So I'm trying to arm people that they can catch them, right? They'll catch them right in the act, especially if they're in a hangout or something, and they can expose them immediately. I mean, that's what I want. And it's really coming to fruition. I'm seeing a lot. It's taken a long time. Listen, I've been doing this for about 5 years, and it's taken a long time, but it seems that a lot of people are getting it. Now, they're missing the nuances, but that will come. And hopefully I'll get people to pay attention. And even the first part, we're going to go over the first part of this presentation, and surprisingly, I haven't been hearing too much of the Pete and Pete science, and this problem has seemed to go away. It's just something that I've felt. I may not have my ear to the ground, and other people may have different opinions about it, but I'm out there all the time listening, and it seems that this one part, and we'll go over here in a couple minutes, I think has really helped. Yeah? We ready to get into it?
Yeah, sure. What are you waiting for?
All right, guys. So mic discipline, please, and we'll get into this. 1 second. That will work. Like I said, I always started out the science presentations with this. And it, like I said, over the past couple months, it seems to have worked. And this was mainly towards flat earthers. Remember what they were doing? They were taking, they already knew the pseudosciences. They already knew that. I didn't have to tell them that. Everyone knows it. It's well down. But what they started doing was start attacking the actual sciences, putting them all in the same bathtub or basket with the pseudosciences, and then just throwing them all out, right? Under the term science. When paleontology, anthropology, archaeology, geology, evolutionary biology, whatever that is, and yes, I'm still laughing, theoretical physics, non-experimental, astrophysics, astronomy, and cosmology are pseudosciences. Everyone, I think, is getting this. Now, not the die-hard cognitive dissonance folks. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about flat earthers. They got this, right? And like I said, they were throwing out the actual sciences, but at least they got this part. So these are not friggin' sciences. Basket weaving is more scientific than all these clowns combined. Why? Well, the first 6 pretenders can't get to the first step of the scientific method, which is science, natural science, observe a phenomena, without a time machine, right? These guys up here, you can't do it. The final 3 masqueraders, our genre, get back up there. See, this is what we deal with exclusively, right? They can observe a natural phenomena with no problem. However, they can't formulate scientific hypotheses because they lack viable independent variables. So they can't isolate or test and validate the dependent variables, the predictions. And that's step 3, scientific hypothesis, hard stop. You can't have natural science without validated hypotheses. Period. End of story. I don't need to go any further. It's over, right? And everyone seems to be getting this. I love it. Now, the true sciences, like I said before, quantum mechanics, that's physics, genetics, chemistry, biochemistry, and parts of biology. Now, a little further down, we're going to get into some nuances with these guys. I'm not going to release it yet, but you got to be very careful. Each claim from any of these disciplines must be accompanied by experiment. They don't get a free pass just because of their name, right? No. We don't do that. No. I'm saying generally, these are the true sciences. However, each specific case has to be focused on. and say, okay, what's your claim? Your claim's this. Do you have experiment backing it up? Nope. Well, then guess what? It's not natural science. Period. So just be careful. Listen to me closely. Each one of these have to provide experiment for their claims or they get mule kicked. Right? It's not a blanket statement. I'm just quantum mechanics, because people can not, yeah, I'm quantum mechanics, and start making claims, and they say, well, QE, you said that that's science. No, I'm not saying that. They must back up their claims with scientific experiment. Period. End of story. Or you mule kick them. Like I just said here, each claim from any of these disciplines must be accompanied by experiment, preferably repeated, validating each claim. If no experiment, that's cod swallow horse pucky. Even from these guys, right? Do not fallaciously indict, like I said, the actual sciences as pseudosciences. Because if you do, I'm going to put your ass in a sling. Now, like I said, for the past couple months, the flat earthers they've got this. They're not doing that anymore. For the most part, maybe here and there, but not as prevalent as it first was about 2 years ago. Right? Am I just seeing things here, or am I correct in this statement? We could stop right there. Yes, no, maybe. My take on that correct?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something. So,
Good.
A quantum leap, because it's called quantum, that's science, right?
The Quantum Leap itself, like the television show?
Yeah. It says quantum, though, doesn't it?
The Quantum Leap television show is not science. And the Quantum Leap... Go ahead.
It says quantum in the name, so therefore it's quantum mechanics. And
exactly.
Therefore science.
That's exactly what I was talking about. No can do. That doesn't pass go. You must have experiment. That is, you have to have a scientific hypothesis. That means you must observe a natural phenomenon. You must have an independent, dependent variable. That's it. Yes? No? Is that it? Have you been...
Could I say something on it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it doesn't... Rather than people focusing on the genres, on the disciplines, of what they... there's certain ones that are science, and there's a huge portion that aren't science, they're pseudoscience. People should focus more on, and you've been saying it. And it took me a time to realize it. Just focus on, right, the claim is this. What is the natural phenomenon? Right? Have they got a hypothesis? Yes or no? And if they do, have they tested this hypothesis through the scientific method? That kind of nails the whole lot, doesn't it?
Yes, there's no free lunch. Like I said, anytime, anything, you don't even have to look at the disciplines. It doesn't matter, right? Just so you know that those up top, paleontology, anthropology, archaeology, geology, evolutionary biology, whatever that is, and yes, I'm still laughing, theoretical physics, astronomy, cosmology, and astrophysics, you already know that everything coming from them is pseudoscience. You already know that, right? So if you get caught out there and they're saying, okay, I got a scientific claim, and you don't even have to know that stuff. All you have to know is what a hypothesis is. Because you just take them through it. Okay, give them the hypothesis. You can't have natural science without hypotheses, so give me the hypothesis. Guess what's going to happen? You already know. You guys have already experienced it how many times? All right? Yep. So you just expose them. Wear a sharp suit and ace them. Yes?
Well, the other term that flat earthers tend to use, scientism. So it used to be the case when you describe flat earthers throwing under the bus the actual sciences, you'll hear them use this word scientism. They're like, oh, in the words of scientism, blah, blah, blah. And they might rattle off a just so story, but then mistakenly throw under the bus something that's actually validated by experiment.
Yeah, Cathexis and I, he named, remember the series we used to do, Science versus Pseudoscience, and he used to talk about scientism all the time. And we've talked about this, and I told him it's not actually scientism, it's pseudoscientism. to be technically correct, because what he was talking about, scientism, that means people's just following science blindly. But that's not the case here. It's pseudoscientism. They're following pseudoscience blindly and treating the pseudoscience as science. Oh,
exactly. So yeah, they're masquerading as science, which is where it becomes tricky, because you'll hear somebody use those words, hypothesis, maybe theory, and you'll think, okay, this is science. Therefore, I need to trust it as being empirically proven, because that's what science does. We're all taught that. But when they're hijacking the terminology only and have produced a just so story instead of empirically validated scientific experimentation, then it becomes pseudoscience. That is the definition, i.e., something that hasn't been through the scientific method but is claimed to be science. So it's just pseudoscience, and exactly right. Therefore, pseudoscientism, if you're just blindly following what is claimed by name only to be science, it isn't. If it isn't backed by experiment, it's pseudoscience.
Yes, sir. Now, back to my question. Remember I said that I haven't been hearing any of those Pete's and Pete's. I haven't seen a whole lot of people attacking the actual sciences lately. Am I off base with that?
I didn't hear that anyway, that's for sure. I've noticed that people have learned what is pseudoscience and what is not pseudoscience.
Yeah, I'm just talking about flat. I'm sorry, I forgot to be specific. I'm just talking about flat earthers here, because remember 18 months, 2 years ago, up until like 3 or 4 months ago, it was all, water's an element, that sort of thing. I'm not hearing that much. Like I said, it might be me, but I've noticed that has changed, at least for right now. Cool. Move on. All right. So, this is, one of the bagaks, semantics, right? As soon as you back them up into the corner, they're going to start bagaking. And one of the bagaks is semantics. We've all heard this. This isn't nothing new. All right. So words, they kind of mean things from an unknown sage. Now check this out. Anne-Marie Helmstein from Physics About, PhD Biomedical Sciences. This only makes sense. This just follows, right? This is self-evident. I don't even know why I have to provide citation for this stuff, but I do. Words have precise meanings in science. You have to be precise in what you're communicating, whether you're talking or in print. People have to know precisely what you're doing. It can't be vague. There can't be any questions to it. Like I said, if I had a penny for as many times as I heard accuracy and precision at university, I mean, I could have retired 35 years. I could have retired before I got out of university, right? I just got tired of hearing. I said, shut up. I know, right? But they beat it into us, right? And it just makes sense, for goodness sakes. From Nielsen Peter, Artificial DNA, PNA, and XNA from 2010. As in all scientific communication, precise language is essential for giving and receiving messages correctly. Duh. Right. They isolated here to natural science, but this is, when you're speaking to somebody, you want to be as precise as possible. So there is no mix-up in the message. Right? This is just common sense. From Dr. Mary Schweitzer, she is a pseudoscientist. She still knows. Exactly. That's one of the things I drive my students crazy on. Words count. Words are important. Choose your words carefully. Yeah, duh. Right? These people are telling you this, and because you're pretender clowns out there, you bagak semantics. That's not, you're not saying anything. You might as well say, bagak, yellow ice cream. Right? You're not, yeah, of course. It's all semantics. Semantics is the meaning of words. Right? It's called the Socratic method from Webster's New World College Dictionary, 5th edition, Socratic method. A method of teaching or discussion like that used by Socrates, in which by means of a series of questions and answers, the logical soundness of a definition is tested. Right? If I'm talking about the intricacies of an amoeba, but you're thinking of an apple, then we're not going to be able to communicate with each other. You're going to be on one page, I'm going to be on another. It's probably going to get contentious because everyone's confused. If people are listening, they're confused because they have different ideas of what apples and amoebas are. So this is just self-evident, well-duh stuff. So when you appeal to semantics, you're just making a fool out of yourself. Uneducated, ignorant fool out of yourself. Just to let you know, but keep doing it. I mean, I heard it like 6 times this week on various forums. But I've been teaching on this for a while, but you guys just aren't getting it. I guess you think your audience members just, you know, they hear the semantics. Yep, I'm covered. That saves my whole train wreck argument, my philosophies. Morons. Science. Let's get in. Like I said, let's define our terms. What are we exactly talking about here, right? So science. It comes from scientia, or science, or scio. Basically, it means to know or knowledge. That is science. That's not what our genre is. Our genre is natural science, right? We're just not out here trying to know things. I mean, that's a good thing. I'm not dogging that out, but that is not natural science. So let's define this monkey. Natural science. We'll get it from Cambridge. Subjects such as biology, physics, and chemistry, in which things that can be seen in nature are studied. Now, part of that is very vague. The second half of that, in which things that can be seen in nature are studied, that's pretty vague, right? I got a problem with that. However, I'd like to point out something. Biology, physics, and chemistry. Where's all the other ones? The ones that prance around, prop their tails up. Everyone talks about them as science. Where is astronomy, cosmology, astrophysics, paleontology? Where are all these guys at? They're not here, are they? Wonder why. That stood out to me. But like I said, I don't like this definition. It's too vague. It's too ambiguous. This is a better definition because it's more specific. This is from Oxford. Natural science, the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experimentation. That's pretty comprehensive. It gets very specific and tells you what it is, right? So this is the definition. There's not too much argument with this, right? It makes sense. It follows. I've peppered this throughout the presentation, and we'll be going over my pepperages. So this is from the University of Rochester Physics Department, or Physics Lab, sorry. The scientific method distinguishes science from other forms of explanation because of its requirement of systematic experimentation. That means if you don't have experiment, you don't have science. Or natural science. Whenever they say science in these genres, they mean natural science. So always remember that. Without experimentation, there cannot be any natural science. Zero. Tells you that right there. Simple as that. From Michael Crichton, testimony before the U.S. Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works. Science is nothing more than a method of inquiry. That's all it is. Thank you, Michael. That's all it is. It's not a big mystery. There's no secret occult knowledge that somebody has that you're trying to acquire. What natural science is, it's not. Natural science is its method. That's it. The scientific method. Guess what method he's talking about there? Back to Michael Crichton. Go ahead.
I didn't know if it was rhetorical or not.
It was rhetorical. So back to Michael Crichton, transcript from the Caltech lecture, and this follows. It makes sense. There is no such thing as consensus science. If it's consensus, it isn't science. If it's science, it isn't consensus. Period. Why? Well, because consensus is subjective. It's based on a whole bunch of people's opinion. That's the opposite of what the scientific method is, right? Consensus, that's more or less religion. That's what religion goes by, actual religion. Not the scientific method. It is objective. It is empirical. No wonder why he says that, right? You get a whole bunch of priests parroting the same thing. You get a consensus. That's not science. That tells you right away that it's not natural science, period. It's self-evident. Scientific evidence. The testing of a hypothesis or theory that is objective and in a controlled environment. This is from the Law Dictionary. Do you see any equations, models, gummy bears, or pictures up in this mug? No, you don't. Well, there's a reason why. Because they're not part of scientific evidence. That's why. Let's take a quick stop here. Comments, questions?
You detailed in the first definition, correct me if I'm wrong, was it chemistry, biology, and physics?
Yes.
Is that the first? Aren't they all the same thing? Don't they all fall under physics anyway?
Yes, they all fall under physics. All the chemistry, the physics is the queen. Yep, you're correct. Now, we're going to get into some nuances here that I sort of touched on before, but I'm going to touch on them a little bit heavier down below. But yes, everything falls under physics. All the other chemistry, biochemistry, genetics, everything, all follow the laws of physics. Yep.
Right, and physics is the study of the physical, right?
Yep.
So to say natural science is the study of the physical, a bit redundant.
It is.
But by the same token, it makes it very clear, even with redundancy, that what we're dealing with, what we're discussing in natural science is the world that we live in, the world that we experience, the physical and natural world. That's science.
Yes, sir.
In this arena.
Yes, sir.
Can I go back to the semantics bit a little bit?
Because,
yes. Yeah. Haven't you noticed lately that they are changing up some of the definitions on words in
for
the
example,
modern science?
Who?
Like huh?
1 second. I'm getting a lot of feedback from you, Betty. Who?
Might be because.
Might be because I'm over talking you.
Yeah, in the middle of my.
Go ahead, finish up.
Yeah, the thing is that I've noticed that they are changing up a lot of definitions now. Not only on the flat Earth, globe Earth, but if you look at the word pandemic or like herd immunity, all these kinds of things, they are now changing up, right? And it sort of goes along with what you say with pseudoscience now. I mean, if you don't stick with set definitions, then everything is malleable, right? You can sort of knit it in your own way to get the outcome that you want.
Yes, you can knit it in your own narrative. That's really descriptive. Yes.
And that's sort of what they're doing right now. So get this. You can also get other things in the world, what's going on right now. I mean, this is so much more than just flat Earth, globe Earth. So if you get this information and it enriches you with far more than this specific topic.
I agree.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about grammar, spelling, semantics. Oh, am I getting a bit of feedback from Betty?
Betty.
Yeah, sorry. I'm
talking about magic. That's what this is. So when John, at the start of the show, detailed Socratic method, that requires effort. Now, if you're just a normie, Joe normally going to listen to common words without necessarily studying their meanings and debating about, with the Socratic method, what the meaning actually is and whether or not it makes logical, consistent sense. And when you use words like, I've forgotten the one you use now, pandemic as a word, yeah, you can change the meaning in societal terms of what pandemic actually boils down to, so that you can go back, cross-reference it in your magic trick and make it make sense, because that's what the definition means. Well, it doesn't mean that the person who's listening to that word necessarily agrees with the definition or can find a different one or debate about that subject. That is what we're talking about. Grammar, spelling, words, they're magic. Science, as is again detailed by John right at the beginning of the show, it's very hyper-specific. You have to tie down the word and what it means and be careful about which words you use and why you use them, and be hyper-specific about why you're using them with intent that means what it's supposed to mean. That's what science deals with, specific meanings of words. Whereas in general societal terms, you're in the fire pit, aren't you? You're just in the mess of lingo and what's the word I'm rooting for when people use their own specific language? What's that word? Slang. That's the word. You've got it. So yeah, you're in the midst of the slang. Well, that's not what we deal in either, is it? That's what we have used against us, though, the magic tricks and the semantics of the words. And yeah, the words have meanings, and to discuss what they actually mean and not necessarily instinctively trust every definition, pull it apart, put it back together again, look at the words and the meanings of the definition and the words being used in the definition to see if it makes logical sense. That all takes a lot of effort.
I might add something to that just very quickly for Betty and for everyone else. I have heard, I haven't checked it, so I can't say for definite, but I did hear some while back that they changed the official definition of the word pandemic 12 years ago. So when they use the word pandemic now officially, they might not be meaning what it used to mean.
Yep, that's true. Words change their meaning over time. You got to keep up on that stuff. Now,
it doesn't really.
Yeah, some words have... Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does, actually. Yes, they do.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be, right? I mean, especially in the science, you should stick to the same definitions, like the word pandemic or like herd immunity. Those are changed, right? But they changed them to get to their narrative.
No. The narrative is the pandemic. You look at the definition of pandemic, it describes quite accurately what's going on now, statistically speaking.
Yeah.
I use my words carefully, right? Well, that's what they define as a pandemic. That's the circumstances that calls us.
Yeah.
Well, you can use that word with accuracy when you describe what's going on. But
it changed 5 years ago.
But when people pull apart the meaning of pandemic, they'll be pulling apart the description of what's occurring now. And it's like, well, that's what's occurring now. It doesn't justify it, doesn't make it reasonable, but that's what the definition meets. So when they use it and they go, well, that's what a pandemic is. When people go, well, it's this. Yeah, that's the definition now.
Yeah, exactly. But it is a sort of Orwellian thing that's going on, right? There's a special language for science and there's a special language for mainstream people, you know? And it gets people confused, like what John said when you're talking about something specific, like microbes, and somebody talks about an orange. It's kind of a difference. And it happened.
Yeah. I think, Betty, sorry, John.
Yeah, I don't want to get off the path on this specific thing. Let's focus on the general concept of defining words. Now, when I say defining words, I'm not talking about defining and, is, are, common words, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about, quibbling over nonsensical stuff, right? But certain words have certain meanings, and then you have to agree on those meanings before you can go on. Let's say the air traffic controllers, right? All the air traffic controllers developed their own slang. Would you feel comfortable flying an airplane in that sense when precision is called for? I know I wouldn't, right? So they have to have their precise language on what they mean, how they mean it. Does everyone follow that?
Yeah. When you said, I forget which description which definition you said, it's a method of inquiry. Very short, very concise. So when you have the numpties telling us that science says, and then they give you a description of something, it's like, science is a method of inquiry. So has this description met the method or not? Because that's all science is.
Yep.
What's clearance, Clarence?
Yeah. You just have to be careful. Like I said, you can get into nonsensical quibbling fallacies over. That's where they'll take you too. Oh, well, should we define this and this? No, everyone knows it's self-evident, but the nuanced words, yes. If you get challenged, just define it. Define what you mean so everyone understands there's no miscommunications. That's the biggest problem that I see, even with regular conversation. Because that's just what Betty was talking about. In regular conversation, if you're talking to a stranger, you can see sometimes where people just miscommunicate and then they start talking past each other, right? Because they haven't defined their terms. This is self-evident.
Like if I say 10-4 right now, a lot of people won't understand that I get you what you're saying.
That could be a sort of an example, yes. Yeah.
A better example would be you've got a snip of Bob the fallacy guy and Brenda talking to each other, and they're just completely talking past each other to the point where one of them talks about like the taste of a pencil or something completely bizarre, and the other one just starts agreeing, and it's just like neither of you are on the same track with the same terms about what you're talking about, to the point where when you listen to the conversation back, it literally makes no sense.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. We beat this one to death.
Roger.
Yeah, let's start over.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
All right. Let's roll on to the scientific method. All right. So this is what I saw on my 5th grade general science chalkboard. They had chalkboards back then. None of those dry erase stuff. I remember seeing this. It was written right on the board. And it seared into my memory. I thought science was cool, when I was younger, even though I was sort of we won't go down that road. I did find it interesting, though. So I said, I remember reading, I said, okay, well, that makes sense. It follows. Now, I highlighted 3 steps here. There's 7 steps in this method. I highlighted 3 because the others are more administrative or logistical. Not that they're not important, right? They still serve their purpose. However, I wanted to highlight the big 3 because these are the indispensable steps of the scientific method, meaning that if you're missing any one of these 3 in blue, then guess what? It's not the scientific method. So step 1, observe a natural phenomena. That's where you get your dependent variable from. Step 3, construct formal hypotheses. That's where you combine your independent variable, the presumed cause of that natural phenomena, dependent variable effect. So it's a supposition of a natural cause and effect relationship. And then step 4, it's time to test that monkey. Right? This is very easy, self-evident. It makes sense. It logically follows. That's what it is. That's all it is. This isn't secret occult knowledge. It just makes perfect sense, right? So let's take a look at this. I wanted to bring this up. This is from the University of Rochester Physics Department. I get a lot of stuff from Professor Wolf's, right? There's a lot of good information on his site. Now, I'm going to go through this. He talks about the scientific method. He says 4 steps, right? What he did was he took out the logistical steps and the administrative steps. It doesn't give you the opportunity to say, oh, well, that's 4 steps. You said 7, QE. Look, they're all confused. No, he just left the logistical steps out. It's not a big deal, right? But I'm going to go through this, and then I'm going to circle back because there's some red marks in here, okay? So, step number 1, observation and description of a phenomenon or group of phenomena. That lines up. Formulation of a hypothesis to explain the phenomena. In physics, the hypothesis often takes the form of a causal mechanism or a mathematical relation. 3. Use of the hypothesis to predict the existence of other phenomena or to predict quantitatively the results of new observations. And number 4, performance of experimental tests of the predictions by several independent experimenters and properly performed experiments. Now, this has some problems. And I called up Professor Wolf's, actually called him. And I wanted to talk not only about this, but some other snafus on his website. Much of this, you got to have truths in here and outright baloney. All right, so let's take a look at this. Formulation of a hypothesis to explain phenomena. This is even incorrect. Formulation of a hypothesis is correct. To explain phenomena? No. Hypotheses don't explain anything. They're suppositions. So I should have redlined that, but I didn't. In physics, the hypothesis often takes always, Professor Wolf's, always takes the form of a causal mechanism. Always. That's the only thing it does. It has nothing to do with this nonsense mathematical relation. Nothing to do with it whatsoever. Show me a natural equation found in nature. Professor Wolf's. Yeah, you're done right there. This is nonsense. Number 3, the use of the hypothesis to predict the existence of other phenomena. You're on shrooms, right? You're a fungus muncher. Or to predict quantitatively the results of new observations. No, it doesn't. The scientific method is not quantitative. It is strictly qualitative. It either is a cause or it isn't. That's it. Now, you can go into deeper after you solved or validated or invalidated the hypothesis. You can start to measure your butt off. I don't really care. And answer yes or no questions. I don't really care about that. And that's fine. But that is not science. That is not natural science. Measurement is not natural science. That's it. It's not quantitative. It's strictly qualitative. And number 4 is correct. Let me see this. Performance of experimental tests of the predictions by several. Yes, that's correct. So take out number 3, take out half of number 4, and you got my 3 steps up here. The 3 indispensable steps. Yep. Professor Wolf, you still have my phone number. Go ahead and give me a call. I won't embarrass you that much. I promise. From Anne-Marie Helmstein, PhD, Biomedical Sciences, the scientific method. D. You see this up here? D. Not an S on the end. Right? Not plural, singular. There is only one scientific method. That's why they call it method. D, not Z. Get it? Doubtful. You'll just go parroting that clown show over at friggin' Gem Panda. I love it. Please keep listening to him. Thank you. So back to Anne-Marie Helmstein, PhD, Biomedical Sciences. Listen to this carefully. The number of steps varies from one description to another, mainly when data and analysis are separated into a separate step. But this is a fairly standard list of 6 scientific method steps, which you are expected to know for any science class. There's a number of things in here, right? Method. Now, she's got 6 steps, but she already told you the reason why. They're playing little games with the logistical steps, right? Some are putting them in, some are leaving them out. But you must have these 3, or it's not science, natural science, right? And you're expected to know these for any science class. Where were you, or when were you expected to know these so you would know them for any science class, even university science class, right? You are already expected to know. I don't remember one class at university that went over the scientific method. Not a single time. They expected you to already know it. In summary, the king of the scientific method is experiment. It's birthed from the queen, hypothesis, which is birthed from the first step of the scientific method, observe a natural phenomena. As I said, the critical indispensable steps are observe a natural phenomena, 2, formulation of a hypothesis, and 3, experiment. You cannot have science that is natural science without these 3. Can't do it. 66% of the experiment is the hypothesis. 50% of the hypothesis is the natural phenomena observed. Game, set, match. Here's some more pepperage from the University of Rochester Physics Labs. The scientific method distinguishes science, that is, it sets science apart from other forms of explanation. Because why? Because of its requirement. It is required to have systematic experimentation. Can't make this any more clear. Quick comments, questions.
No, that was pretty clear.
That's pretty quick. We ready to roll?
I might say one thing on it.
Go ahead.
I'll keep it short. I think that people who think that there is more than one scientific method live in a world where nobody ever gets to a definite answer, because they can never validate anything. It's always only possibly this or maybe that.
No, we bust them quick. This is how you bust them. Whoever's parroting that made up nonsense that says there's many scientific methods. Really? Okay. Give me an example. What is it? Give me just one example of the scientific method you just dreamed up, and then walk me through a demonstration or an example of it, validating anything. That's how you stop that nonsense quick. Then they'll just start calling you names.
Well, they say I observed moon phases, and then I took some data from different places on the Earth and made an assumption, a fairy tale story, and then there you go. It's science.
Uh-oh. Where's the hypothesis at?
Well, they give you the hypothesis, or what they call the hypothesis would be the just so story they present after providing you a phenomena. So here's the phenomena. There's dependent variable. That's why it was the last addition, right, to the housekeeping questions. At your request, we strapped on any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics, because they've got plenty of phenomena. Well, as you said, that's 33% of the overall method. It's half of the hypothesis. Well, half the hypothesis, dependent variable, all you need to do is give us a presumed cause of the effect and give us a null, which is just the antithesis of what you presume causes the effect, i.e. if A, B, well, the null's going to be if A, not B. But that's all they need to do. But they can't, because upon giving us a hypothesis, we can say, all right, let's actualize it then. And we're never going to get anything that's normally even bloody real. You hardly ever even get something real as their claimed independent variable. They just make it up. Like, pink unicorns are going to cause it. In their case, gravity. They just make something up and call it an independent variable.
Yes, sir. How many examples have we had of that over the past 3.5 years?
Well, examples of actual... Sorry, go on.
No, go on, mate. Finish your point.
I was going to say examples of actual hypotheses from the fields of astronomy, cosmology, and astrophysics. Well, none. They don't have any. All they have is just those stories.
Yeah, the other way that they want to do science is, which I heard recently, was collect a lot of data and then put it into stats, and there you go.
Well, that's probability or likelihood. That's induction. The scientific method doesn't have anything to do with induction. See Karl Popper, problem with induction. Guess what that is?
Yeah, but that's why they call it a different method. So there you got the different methods.
Nope.
They say.
Can't do it. You need a hypothesis. We're going to get to that.
John summed this up already, Betty, because you just ask them for the process and then take them through their process with their claim and see where it ends up. And if it doesn't end up in an empirical cause and effect relationship being valid or validated, then it's not science. But they'll never even give you the method that they're going to take it through. All they'll do is offer up a claim phenomena, which is more likely than not, in those fields at least, going to be a genuine phenomena. But then they'll just have a just so story to go with it. and they'll call the just so story the hypothesis. So that's the method. In other words, they'll steal little bits of the actual method, and pepper it with their sounding scientific words. Well, my theory is, for example, and that's all they'll do. But they won't literally give you a method if you ask them to. I'm pretty sure QE's been asking for quite some time, and he'll get answers like, well, there's 16 methods. You go, okay, give me one other than the actual scientific method. Crickets.
Yeah, it's sort of a masquerade.
Yeah, Betty's witnessed that.
And that's sort of a real pun to the real world. It's a masquerade.
Well, you've witnessed that personally yourself, haven't you?
Again, with the Iod Foss effect, right? With the GeoStream.
No, you've witnessed many, many occasions where people have come out and said there are many, many scientific methods, and I said, really? Post one, walk us through it, give me the hypothesis. Right? What happened?
They can't even propose a valid method, valid hypothesis, right?
How many times do you think I've done that? Maybe greater than 10, just personally with you, with us being in a hangout, and what happened every single time from the crayon muncher across the table?
Yeah. Well, they tried to change it on because they never write it down. You can never get them to write it down.
And that's what I started to do, right? Right on Nathan's show, I'm writing these things down.
Those were lovely to see.
Yeah.
You could see the flaws in it immediately.
Exactly.
Yep.
How many you think we did of those, Nathan? Maybe 85?
50. Yeah, 50 to 100 of those, where all you did, literally, was say, okay, what is it you're claiming? Let's write it down. And almost instantly, in most cases, they'd give you something quite firmly until they realised that you were writing it down. And then they'd want to change what they'd just said 10 seconds ago. They go, okay, well, you've just said falling object is the observed phenomena. Well, let's write that down then. Great, we've got our dependent variable. No, that's not my dependent variable. Yeah, it's your phenomena. No, that's not my dependent variable. That's going to be my cause. What are you talking about? It's your phenomena. No, it's going to be my cause. The effect we're studying is gravity. Okay, let's write that down then. Okay, dependent variable, gravity. Where do we observe that? No, my dependent variable is not gravity. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I love those days when that happened. Nowadays, nobody comes in to do that testing, huh?
They're all scared of us.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
All right. Ready to roll on?
Yeah. I just want to say one thing before we roll.
Go ahead, Brian.
A question. Thank you. I'll make it fast, QE. Something that I've asked 3 times now in recent months to people when I'm commenting and debating people on this subject, scientific method, is just ask them what's a null hypothesis, and they just don't know. They're not able to give you a very simple null hypothesis. It's such a simple thing that they can't give it to you.
Oh yeah,
they're confusing it with an alternative.
That's Betty's dagger. She started wielding that around like a weapon.
But just saying, Betty. What's the null? What's the null?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, because to have the null, you need to have a viable, coherent alternative. You see how they're connected?
My little mini rant. I'm going to go into my little mini rant on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is it's the most critical bit of the method, in my opinion, because it's the bit that gives it the empiricism. In other words, at the end of the process, when you actualize the hypothesis, because of this formulation method, one or other will be proven. So if A, then B, or if A, not B, that is, in most simple terms, is an alternative and a null. The alternative, if A, then B, the null, if A, not B. Well, when you vary and manipulate A, you can only get one or other result. In other words, one or other of those is going to be proven. Without question, that's going to be the result of actualizing that hypothesis. If you've got a null. They often probably don't know what a null is. But there we go. That's the most critical part, because it gives it empiricism. Something is going to be proven at the end of this process. That's really powerful. That's why they steal it.
Hey, that was a small rant. When you said I want to get into my rant, I opened up my Nutri-Grain bar to take a couple bites, man. You need to go on a couple more sentences at least.
Okay. Well, they grease the skids, don't they? This got me props last time I said it, so I'll say it again. Ultimately speaking, they're greasing the skids for their just so stories when they use these words. And the words are only being used because the method is empirical. So if you hear some numpty telling you that science doesn't prove anything, that enrages me because it's all it does. Follow the method step by step, formulate a correct, valid, null alongside your prediction of what's causing the effect. Obviously, you're hoping to validate the alternative. You want to guess right, but it doesn't matter. You know, the chances are, depending on how good you are at whatever arena you're in when you're performing your science, you'll get it wrong. But when you get it wrong, you're not getting it wrong because you've also got the null. And the null had a prediction that you got right. So once you formulate it, you're going to be getting something right at the end. And if you're validating your null, you're saying it isn't this that causes it. So if you need more Nutri-Grain chewing time, you know, if you come across a hot spring, in the earlier example, you said, well, we calculate it. We look at it a lot and make a lot of measurements. Okay, what are you going to do? Calculate how much boiling is going on in the hot spring. What does that tell you? Well, precisely, Dick. It doesn't tell you anything. You've got to formulate a presumed cause of the boiling hot spring. What causes it to boil? Well, you go, well, I think it's the acid content. There's quite a lot of acid-bearing rocks that's obviously seeping into the water, and that's causing it to boil. That's my hypothesis. If A, that's acid content, then B, boiling hot spring. Now, this is oversimplified just to give us a natural phenomena to actually experience in nature, but nonetheless, my null is if A, acid content, not boiling water. So I go, hopefully I've got it right, because obviously I want to be right. I want my alternative to be validated. So I vary the acid content and nothing happens. In other words, if acid content, not boiling water, oh, what do you know? I validated, proved my null. Acid content has no bearing on whether or not it'll be boiling. So the water isn't being boiled by the acid content. What else could it be? Let's have another guess. Maybe it's the heat. If heat, then boiling hot spring. If heat, not boiling hot spring. Obviously, you've got all of your constant variables, which you'll hold to not affect the test in any manner. You then add heat to the water, it boils, you validate your alternative. Well, both cases, acid and heat, had a win at the end. In other words, this method, the reason it's hijacked, the reason they want to grease their skids with their just so stories using words like experiment and hypothesis, is because if performed correctly, you're going to be proving something. And that's been taught to us from very early in school, that we're going to be proving something with science. Science proves things. And then you go over to numpties who believe in the globe. Well, science doesn't prove anything. Wrong. What you think is science is actually pseudoscience, and your pseudoscience proves nothing. The reason you've been propping up your stories, actually pseudoscience, as having experiments, for example, Cavendish, is because you don't have any empirical evidence. You're utilizing the words and vernacular of science to make your just so story seem more true. But if it was science, you'd have proven your hypothesis upon experimentation. You'd have some empiricism to your statements. If nothing else, this doesn't cause that if you validated your null. Is that enough chewing time?
Yes, and everything you said was right on point. Thank you very much. Another one point before we move on is you're going to hear this out there, guys. Science doesn't prove things, it only falsifies things. Then you say to yourself, that you do the head slap and say, well, wait a second. If I falsify something, I ipso facto prove the converse true. Right? I mean, this is just, I don't know where they get this from. I think they parrot it from Wiki, or they think it's from Karl Popper, and that's the end of it. See, if you falsify, it only makes, it's just common sense. If I falsify that you're not an amoeba, then I've proven that you're not an amoeba.
Yeah, but they need this, right? They need this to happen in their science because they need it to change alongside the narrative that they want to roll out.
Yeah, it's a justification for the pseudoscience, just so stories being updated and amended when they're proven wrong. And if you're claiming science, same exact people who've swindled you into believing that it's science will have a justification why science can do that. Well, because science is ever changing. Science doesn't prove things, it only disproves things. Obviously, therefore, science is fluid and it's going to be updated. No, science is empirical. No, we're never going to find that somehow somebody's going to invalidate vitamin C or lack thereof causing scurvy. That's not going to happen. Once it was determined through science, that's it. It is proven.
Exactly.
What is it in Latin? Quod erat demonstratum, QED. It is demonstrated.
Hey, QED, I like that. QE demonstrated.
I got a super chat that I want to shout out. It's from the Adam Meekin, and he says, respectfully, you would be hard-pressed to find a baller who could define null hypothesis, never mind realize its significance.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Half the time they don't know what null even is.
Thank you, Adam. And you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Why aren't you on the panel?
Because he's now super chatting.
Okay. Okay. We'll let him super chat. That's fine. All right. We're ready to move on?
Yep.
I am. So let's go with the first step of the process, or the first step of the scientific method, from Kristen McClellan, The Nature of Science and the Scientific Method. The first process in the scientific method involves the observation of a phenomena, event, or a problem. Back to Professor Wolfs from the University of Rochester Physics Labs. Like I said, the scientific method has 4 steps. That's what he said. Number 1, observation and description of a phenomena or a group of phenomena. Yep, it's right on point, right? You got to have your dependent variable. And remember from Niels Bohr, no phenomenon is a phenomenon unless it is an observed phenomena. You have to observe it. Right? It gets back to quantum mechanics. So, it's not ask a question, see Science Buddies, because that's where you got that from. You looked up scientific method, you seen Science Buddies, and you said, oh, the first step is ask a question. Well, no. That's not the first step of the scientific method. Here, I got a question for you. Are ballers morons? That's a question. But that's a yes or no question, right? Has nothing to do with science. So it can't be ask a question. Unbelievable. It's not observe concrete nouns either. Trees, rocks, or shoes, right? It has to be a phenomena. And it's not conjure a phenomena. Black holes, dark matter, multiverses, singularities, you can go on and on and on. No, you can't test those. The only way you can test them is in your imagination, right? That's not science. That's not the scientific method. That's not natural science. Speaking of natural, because people still have big problems with this, and I just sit back and laugh. They don't know what natural means. So, let's show them. Natural world, Merriam-Webster. All of the animals, plants, and other things existing in nature and not made or caused by people. Oxford dictionaries, natural, existing in or derived from nature, not made or caused by humankind. Getting some echoes in here, right? Sounding the same? Wonder why. From vocabulary.com, natural, something that comes from nature rather than being man-made. From Cambridge, natural, from nature, not artificial or involving anything made or caused by people. That's what natural means, right? It's not going to mean its antithesis in any other semantic range. It can't mean the opposite of itself. Guess what the opposite is of natural? Right there. You see that? Synthetic. From Webster's again, man-made, manufactured, created, or constructed by human beings, specifically synthetic. Here's your huckleberry ballers that have problems with this. Listen closely. From Artificial DNA, PNA, and XNA 2010. We already heard the first statement above. As in all scientific communication, precise language is essential for giving and receiving messages correctly. Thus, artificial would generally mean something not found in nature, and synthetic would mean something that is man-made. To make a chemistry analogy, chemically synthesized B12 vitamin would not be considered artificial as it is chemically, analytically, and functionally indistinguishable from naturally isolated B12 vitamin. Here's the really important part. But it is not natural either, that is obtained from nature. It is synthetic. Turn out the lights, the party's over with your little games. It's over right here. So, their ad hoc, feebly conjured, made-up bollocks, the only choices are natural and supernatural, is belly laughed and pummeled into the oblivion. Point of order, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The difference between natural and synthetic can be reconciled in less than 2 friggin' seconds by any semi-coherent fourth grader in between iterations of Candy Crush. That's it. This is a belly laugher. So now that I've identified 2 categories, natural and synthetic, that is man-made, are there any commonalities between the two? Yeah, right? They're physical. Each has one or more of the following: chemical formula or structure, charge, matter, momentum, or spin, or millielectron volts, kcals, or kilojoules. Each and every one of them do. However, the actual situation is a trichotomy, not one of your false dichotomies. Here is the trichotomy: natural versus synthetic versus supernatural. Natural, like we went over above. All of the animals, plants, and other things existing in nature and not made or caused by people. Synthetic, anything man-made. Supernatural, above nature. Immaterial, without matter or energy. Here they are. Read them and weep. There is the true trichotomy. See it? Supernatural, information, time, and thoughts. These have no chemical formula, structure, charge, matter, momentum, or spin, millielectron volts, kcals, or kilojoules. They are supernatural, and they do exist. Thoughts, time, and information, I guarantee you they exist. The physical and natural. That's what it means. Trees, water, light, frogs, and sulfur. Pretty simple. As opposed to man-made. Cheerios, barbecue grills, shoes, headphones, and Indy cars. This is very easy to tell the difference. I usually drop anchor right in here so it'll burn in their retinas. But I won't do that this time. The points. Number 1, this is very important. No synthetic, man-made object can enter the scientific method as the observed natural phenomena, that is the dependent variable or the effect, because every cause, that is the independent variable, of man-made effects is, wait for it now, friggin' man. Okay? We don't need a scientific experiment to figure out what caused a man-made object. I know, it's profound, isn't it? Number 2, quantum mechanics, that is physics. Chemistry, biochemistry, genetics, biology are the natural sciences, not the synthetic sciences. There's a caveat here, okay? And I italicized a couple issues. And I made a mention of it before that I wanted to stop, okay? A lot of biology, let's use biology first. A lot of biology is not natural science. A lot of it is glorified collating and making conventions. The taxonomic classification system is not brought about by hypothesis testing, right? It's conjured in the minds of people, right? So there's a lot of things in biology, not everything, but a lot of things in biology are not natural science. Also, chemistry, right? Not everything in chemistry is natural. Why? Because of the chemical industry. You heard of that. They use synthetics. Now, I'm not saying it's not true and they don't exist. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's not natural science. It's a well-endowed based on the definition of natural and man-made or synthetic. It's very easy to reconcile. Number 3, natural science deals with the natural world, which is evaluated and assessed via the scientific method. That is hypothesis testing, experiment. That's what a hypothesis test is. Now, some Pepperidge Farms from the University of Rochester Physics Labs, Professor Wolf's. The scientific method distinguishes science from other forms of explanation because of its requirement of what? Systematic experimentation. If you don't have that, you don't have that, and you don't have that. Pretty simple, don't you think? Let's stop right there. We're going to end it up right after this. Any quick comments, questions?
Yeah, I like it's not a phenomena unless it's an observed phenomena. Because the amount of times we have things that are phenomena in name only, i.e. they only occur in the heliocentric model as opposed to in the world we experience. Is
that it?
There was something else, but my kid was climbing on me. Talking to my kid, I was going over this with my kid the other day, my 4-year-old, and she was going to get dressed up as something that was endangered. I can't remember if it was a tiger or something. And I was trying to explain it to her. She's only 4. But I thought, well, it's an opportunity to get her to learn a new word. I was like, taxonomic classification system. And to repeat, it was adorable. Anyway, that's all I got.
Yeah. Cool.
The natural and synthetic. Someone tried to catch me out on something to do with relative density. Can't remember who it was. It was somebody not well known, I don't think, anyway. I don't know, some while back. And they said to me, how come styrofoam floats on water? I didn't know the density of styrofoam or whether it was less dense or more dense than water. But I said, relative density is based on the natural world, the natural order. Styrofoam is not natural. It's made by man. So, if that makes any sense to people.
Yep.
I got a question.
Yep.
Can you do science inside a vacuum chamber?
Nope.
So if I have a hypothesis and I have some fluids that I want to mix up in a vacuum chamber, that's something that wouldn't be called natural science.
Exactly. Or show me a natural vacuum.
Okay, so the whole thing that we did with the measuring of gravity, how fast things fall in a vacuum.
Yep.
Counts under that, right?
Pseudoscience. Now, to be pseudoscience, you must portray yourself as following the scientific method, right? If they're portraying themselves as this is science, that's pseudoscience because it doesn't follow the scientific method. It's not a natural phenomenon observed.
Okay, now another thing. You talked about synthetic, right? If you have an hypothesis of how two synthetic things would react to one another, is that science?
Cause and effect? That wouldn't be natural science. You could do a cause and effect evaluation of it, but it wouldn't be classified as natural science. No, because it's synthetic, both.
Okay, but you could call it science because you have an hypothesis and you have an outcome cause and effect.
You couldn't be natural science. We got to stress this: natural science. So whenever you say, yeah, this is science, then that denotes to most people that it's natural science when it's not.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, but it is possible.
Yes.
Right? It is possible, but the topic, flat Earth, globe Earth, is natural science.
Exactly.
You can't go anywhere else to
exactly. You got it. Yes.
Or create anything else to do it.
Good question, right? Because most of them think that we think that they don't exist. Oh, it's man made it. You can't do it. You can't gain any knowledge. No, I never said that. All I'm saying is it is not natural science, period. Very simple to evaluate this stuff.
Well, you can also maybe hypothesize that if you have a vacuum chamber, you have a suit that someone wears for in outer space, which we haven't proved yet, but if that would work inside of a vacuum chamber, you can do something with that, right?
Yeah, but that's a yes or no question. We're going to get right into that.
All right.
That's technology. That's just technology.
Yes. And you got to remember, it's the question that you're asking. What I need to see, that's why I always stress this, everywhere I go, if they say it's science, I always want the hypothesis, right? You can't get it. We're going to go over this here in a couple seconds, so I'll just stop right there.
Yeah, but they call that science, but Nathan said technology, but it has some sort of overlap. You could have an hypothesis be valid. If I lose the valve of a spacesuit, cause and effect, I will die, right? In a vacuum.
Yeah, but that's not natural because you're in a vacuum.
Yeah, it's of course it's created, right? It is a created, man-made, created scene.
Yeah, the environment's synthetic.
Yeah, but you still can learn from something.
No, I'm not saying that you can't. Yeah. Yes.
And it's still, you could call it science in a way because you use technology, but it is not the natural science that we're looking for to prove the natural state of the Earth.
Yeah, you can get really quick into an equivocation fallacy, and I'll always catch you. Not you, but the royal you.
I like the royal me.
I think I know where you're driving at here, Betty. What you're trying to drive at is the false comparison between a place that doesn't exist, that is claimed to be a vacuum, and then their claim that by false comparison, when doing quasi, or I'm doing air quotes, but there's no cameras, air quotes, experiments in vacuum chambers, because naturally that would happen out in space, right? Is that what you're trying to drive at?
Yeah, because they say sometimes that in a vacuum this and this work like this, and you have a valid hypothesis, maybe, right? It still doesn't make the place real, right?
Well, exactly. So I see what you're driving at, but no, you've got to first have the place be real and experienceable for it to be considered natural. Well, what's this? How does it say? Nature abhors a vacuum. There are no naturally occurring vacuums. This is nonsense. Certainly not one that we would suddenly stumble upon and go, "Oh my God! If only I had a science spacesuit." It's never going to occur naturally. So you're never going to need to establish why are my eyes being sucked out of my head? Why is the pressure from my own internal body pushing my eyeballs out? When do you ever stumble across that circumstance to have to worry about cause and affecting something? You're not. It doesn't occur naturally.
And that's the thing that they try to trick people with, I think, to say, well, look at this and look at that, and then sort of extrapolate that to a place that doesn't exist.
But they just beg the question. They'll invent the phenomena, which is why I said I like so much when it's not a natural phenomena, or it's not a phenomena unless it's an observed phenomena. So a classic example, the show that's going out now on my channel, Nathan Oakley, that's Nathan Oakley, premiering now, that show's got a description of somebody dropping something and saying Earth turns underneath it. But when they give the description of it, they're dropping it in a very unnatural scenario and extrapolating out the 1 in 30 chance that it doesn't land where it's been dropped from. And the question asked at that stage is, where's this occurring naturally? Now, in reality, I'm trying to tie the person down to the actual claim that we have Coriolis drift on Earth by getting them to claim where it occurs naturally. But the same principle applies. If you're going to claim science, you've got to be observing something actually occurring in nature, not claiming something happens in a sky vacuum in violation of natural law. You've got to show it me happening. And if you can't show me it happening in nature, and in the example I'm giving now, the chap's basically, you say, well, if I drop something from 6 feet, will I see that it drift? Well, no, it's not in the air long enough. And then they go into a justification for why you don't see the phenomena in nature. Like, no, if we're going to do science, we want to see the phenomena in nature. If you're going to call pendulums science, or spinning lazy Susans with lasers on them science, what are we seeing in nature occur? And if you can't take me to something, then it's not science. It's not a natural phenomena. It doesn't need explanation. And if the explanation is, well, because I've spun up a lazy Susan, or because I've put a spacesuit on to extract all the air from this chamber, it's like, that's not natural. We don't need to concern ourselves with that. I'm not concerned with that.
Yep.
All right, we're good?
Yep, we're good.
Yep. So let's go into, this is a very simple algo to let you know whether your topic is available for scientific inquiry. And I got a couple examples after this. So just be patient. So let's keep it simple. Like I said, it's a two-step algo. Step one, and we already went over this, the step one part. Is the inquiry concerning nature or a man-made object? Obviously, if it's B, then it isn't a valid scientific inquiry. It can't even enter the method. We already went over this part. We're going to go over this part now. If it's A, continue to step two. Step two, is the inquiry A, cause and effect, how, why question, or B, a what is, yes or no question? If it's B, then it isn't a valid scientific inquiry. I'm going to show you why. If it's A, then proceed the first step of the scientific method. So, why? Well, scientific hypotheses, that's why. A scientific hypothesis is your experiment statement. It expresses a testable proposed cause and effect relationship, the phenomena that was observed in step one. And I present to you Sean Carroll. Listen up, baltards, from nature.com. California Institute of Technology physicist Sean Carroll arguing in the edge that hypotheses aren't simply useful tools in some potentially outmoded vision of science. They are the whole point. Get it? So, what is a scientific hypothesis? Well, from Lowell C. Becoming a Successful Scientist from Cambridge University Press, a scientific hypothesis is based on cause and effect reasoning. A scientific hypothesis does not merely state X and Y may be related, but explains why they are related. From Drexel University, the scientific method is hypothesis-driven. One makes an educated guess to explain a cause and effect relationship. From Anne-Marie Helmstein, PhD, Biomedical Sciences, a hypothesis is an educated guess based on observation. It's a prediction of cause and effect. Are you getting it? From Colorado State, scientific hypothesis, a special kind of prediction that forecasts how the independent variable will affect the dependent variable. Yep, cause and effect relationship again. From the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, in an experiment, the independent variable is a variable that is varied or manipulated by the researcher, and the dependent variable is the response that is measured. An independent variable is the presumed cause, whereas the dependent variable is the presumed effect. The IV is the antecedent, whereas the DV is the consequent. So you must have a cause and effect situation. That is, you need to explain it, not describe it. An explanation deals with hows and whys, and descriptions deal with what's and is's. The scientific method has nothing to do with the what's and is's, yes and no questions. Nothing whatsoever to do with it. It's a category error. So, I got two examples. Now, you on Discord aren't going to be able to hear it unless you're following on the live stream, but that's all right. I'm going to go over what they said, The audience will hear this. Okay, so it's only about a minute, and then we'll go through it. Ready? Here we go.
I've got a very simple example. Very simple example. We want to study whether salmon go back to the same spot. What we do is we're going to tag a whole load of salmon, yeah, and we're going to monitor those salmon, and we're going to monitor their return back into shallows, yeah, and then we can say, okay, they are definitely coming back to this location. What independent variable have I manipulated?
Just like if we ask the question, do people get cancer? You could do a study on that. Regardless of what the mechanism of cancer is, we can determine whether people do or do not get cancer, right? Just by doing observation, we could study that and answer that scientific question, whether human beings get cancer. Maybe we want to find out, well, do dogs get cancer the way human beings get cancer?
So, are these valid scientific inquiries, that is, valid scientific hypotheses? Globetard Goober number 1, this is Just the Legend or Foolish Decisions. He was the first one out the gate. This is what he said. We want to study whether salmon go back to the same spot they spawned from. Okay, let's employ the two-step algo, right? Step 1, is the inquiry concerning nature or man-made object? He's good to go. It's concerning nature, salmon. Step 2, is the inquiry a cause and effect how I question, or B, a what is yes or no question? This is a what is yes or no question, isn't it? Therefore, it is not a valid scientific hypothesis and can't enter the scientific method. Simple, right? That's how easy it is. The second one, this is the Globetard Goober number 2. This is Jake on the plane. We'll do A. Do people get cancer? Well, here we go with the algo again. Is the inquiry concerning nature or a man-made object? This one's concerning nature. He's good to go with step 1. Step 2, is the inquiry a cause and effect how I question, or B, a what is yes or no question? Do people get cancer? That's a yes or no question. It cannot enter the scientific method. This is an invalid scientific hypothesis. On to his B, you know it's the same thing. Do dogs get cancer like human beings get cancer? Oh, boy. So, step 1, we already know it's nature. Step 2, is the inquiry a cause and effect how I question, or a what is yes or no question? Obviously, it is a what is yes or no question. This is not a valid scientific hypothesis. It can't enter the scientific method. That's it. Questions, comments?
It's back to the last point I made before your section break. It's got to be something happening. You'll see it happening in nature. So if it's not happening, it's not happening. You know, it's really simplistic. You've got to have something actually occurring to need to study it. And when you study it, you say, what causes that to happen? Not, does this happen? Like, does the hot spring boil? Yes, it does. Science. No, what's causing it to boil? You know what I mean? Does it boil? Yeah, it does, yeah. Wow, you've done well there, son. Pat yourself on the back.
Hopefully everyone's getting this. I'll tell you what, like I said, I'm camping out here. You might be shocked, but I'm going to do this all over again a couple more times. We're just going to stay around here. Maybe not this part of the presentation, but it's going to be all about science, natural science, and what it is. You're going to get so sick of it. But I got a method to my madness. You're going to be able to, once you get it, you got it. And you'll be able to come, I don't care who you go against. It could be the most premier, quote unquote, scientist in the world. You can destroy him and expose him in less than 15 seconds. 10 with interruptions.
If people, I'm going to defend you saying, oh, people get bored of it. Well, no, there's a few key questions when any deception's involved. So who, what, where, when, and why. And how is answered by the scientific method. How have they convinced? most people in the Western world that they're on a spinning ball flying through a sky vacuum. Well, this is how they told you it was science. So understanding what science actually is goes a long way to figuring out how you've been deceived into believing you're on a ball flying through space. That's the how. They utilize the words and vernacular of a method that is empirical to grease the skids of their just so stories.
Yes, sir. Betty, take the con. Let's get some quick final thoughts.
Yeah.
We got.
Let's start with Ryan's logic.
Yeah, good presentation. I'm looking forward to the next ones. What I do notice, going off of what you said earlier, QE, is that a lot of people who would have braced against this in the flat Earth community, that would have braced against this because they are bracing against you more than what you're trying to teach. It's more of a personal thing. No offense, I don't mean that in an offensive way. It's just that they just can't deal with your strictness, basically. But they don't understand it either. So that's another side of it. But what I find is that more and more they are realizing that when you utilize this against the ballers, that they don't end up in a corner. They end up having the ballers in a corner. But they stop the ballers from being able to claim things as science when they're not. So bit by bit by bit, it is becoming more and more appreciated, would be the word I use. Thank you.
Okay, we got John Bernard. You want to add something?
Yeah, thank you. Do you hear me? Yeah?
Yep. Your mic is kind of ruffling. But...
my phone was closed, so can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're going to hear you.
Yeah, it's back and front. Everything is so simple. The Earth is flat. Why is the Earth is flat? Because there is no proof for the globe. Why
John, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about science here today, scientific method.
Yeah, and scientific method. Therefore, we have to use the scientific method, the dependent variable and so on.
Is anyone going to correct them, or do I have to correct them?
We have to know what we are talking about, not go in emotion.
Yes, that's true. I don't want to go down this gravy train lane, John. What I'm saying here is that the scientific method, you can't use it to adjudicate what is yes or no questions. That is the Earth a sphere or flat? That's a what is question, yes or no. So now you need to know that that's not science. I understand that, but you're not using science to prove anything with those two questions, is what I'm saying.
But this question is, can we use logic?
Can they use logic to prove that the Earth is a sphere? No. They'd have to post
the Earth is flat.
Or the Earth is flat. No, you can't use a logical syllogism for that. No.
How about a black swan then?
You can use a black swan. That's logical consistency argument.
All right.
So, Nathan, you wanted to add something?
Well, now I was just going to add that that's disproving a positive assertion. When you make the black swan argument, you're disproving their consistency. When you make the first statement, you're saying if the Earth's a sphere, well, that's the positive assertion that's being debunked in the logical consistency.
Right.
If you're talking about Coriolis, and they say that, and if you use logic that tell you there is nothing reflecting, there is nothing drifting, that's logic. It's maybe not science, or maybe it is science. Do you understand why I'm...
I do. Can I field this one? So
yes, go ahead.
It would be science if they had natural phenomena. So if we observed that things drifted because we were turning underneath them, then that would be something that we would observe happening. And we might go, why is it that when I chuck a ball in the air, it seems to fly away from me? I'm just throwing it straight up. I don't get it. In other words, yeah, this would be in the remit of science if we had the effect, right?
Yeah.
In other words, if we had Coriolis, I was explaining this on today's show. It's a weird scenario with Coriolis because it's for both of us. We put it in a column that we utilize with that title. So we say, well, what's our best globe destroyers? Well, top three. Number three in my list of importance is Coriolis effect. So I'm claiming Coriolis effect as something to destroy the claim Earth spins. But yet simultaneously, they claim they've got Coriolis effect. Now, where this becomes confusing is like, well, do we or don't we have the effect? So 3 times in this show now, I've got the opportunity to say it's only a phenomena if it's an observed phenomena. In other words, only something happening if you see it happening. So with Coriolis, yeah, it would be a phenomena if we saw it happening, and we don't.
It's so funny. But they are claiming it's happening, but nobody can see it, and there's no evidence of it. And there's no, therefore, it is logic and science, but not science.
Well, no. Just to keep it back on the track of the show, so it makes sense within context of the scientific method.
Okay.
If you were applying that methodology to your questioning, if somebody claims a Coriolis claim, and you just say, okay, well, let's take this through the method. Where do we observe it happening? First step, observe phenomena. So you just say, well, let's put it through method of science. Where do we observe this happening in nature? And that's where it falls on its arse. That's where they fail, because they can't take you to it happening in nature.
There I am. That is my deflection and point.
I hope it helped. If they had a natural phenomena, it would be worthy of science. They don't have the natural phenomena of Coriolis effect. It's not occurring. Therefore, there's nothing to science because we're not observing anything happening.
Then I can prove that it's not science and it's not logical.
When they claim there's some science for it with a pendulum or a gyro, ask them where they're observing drift in nature. Not observing drift in the man-made device, but observing it in nature. And they can't. That's the bottom line. They'll assert science. They'll say a gyro science. No, it isn't. Show me a naturally occurring phenomena first before we get to a quasi-experiment that's trying to validate the cause of it. But I've got to see the thing happening first. Show me it happening, then I'll worry about what the cause of it after I see it happening. If I don't see it happening, I don't need to worry about what's causing it. It's not happening. And that's the case with Coriolis. Sorry to drag this out, John.
Yeah, it's okay. You good, John?
There we have it.
Yep.
It's just one thing to...
Quickly, please.
Just one thing, please. It's about the sun, the sun circle in the north, and the midnight sun. It's not only midnight sun. There's sun all over the night, sun over 3 weeks or more. You see the sun. That is observed phenomenon. And it is science then. And I see it, and I understand it can't be on a globe. That is science and observation. But
yeah, they've got a cause and effect relationship being asserted, but are they validating the cause they assert by varying and manipulating it? The answer is no. But do you have a phenomena? You could say the sun rising and setting is a phenomena. Yes, absolutely. Do they have an established, varied, manipulated, with a null? No, they don't have that. They just have a just so story to go alongside it.
But in my example, the sun never setting. It's never setting. So there is my proof for the sun is moving over the stationary Earth.
That's observably apparent. This is going to be something maybe saved for flat Earth debate, because I can sense QE getting frustrated because he wants to keep the subject onto science, and we're veering off it.
For me, it's proof for the sun is moving over the Earth, and the Earth is stationary. I think also as a science.
Can I go to the? Shall I go to the next?
Yeah, thanks a lot, John. Appreciate it. We'll get back with you on those questions. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, then Neil, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening. Pass.
Nothing to add, Neil?
No.
Science is your big thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm just taking it all in.
Good. Okay, and then we got, as a surprise, we got Adam. Hey, Adam, can you talk? I see you off mute, but I don't see you talking.
Ask him about his jumpsuit. He'll answer you.
No, I think he's got. Hey, Adam, drop out. Come back in again, sir.
I think that's the case. Yeah, Discord is acting up, or might be acting up.
We got you now.
Yeah, we got him.
That talk of that tracksuit. Apologies.
I told you.
I've managed to catch bits tonight. All I'd say is, when you start out on this journey, and what they spit is at first is, as the rumpus would summarize, the whole body of science. That's what's thrown at us. For me, I love science. Science is our friend. And as John's demonstrating, science helps demonstrate our point. It helps disprove theirs. Science will never prove the nature of the Earth. But there's points within it that, for me, I say science is our friend. And there's nothing to be afraid of. They need to be very afraid of science. They need to be very afraid of people recognizing and fully comprehending the meaning of science instead of just curtailing to its supposed importance. And I think that's what the ballers fear the most, is if we fully understand or remember is probably the better phrase, not understand, remember, because that certainly applies to me. Then all of the supposed whole body of science things that support their globe disappear, and they are labelled exactly what they are, which I think you highlighted nicely, John, is pseudoscience. But yeah, science is our friend.
It's a reification fallacy.
Yeah. No, he is.
Yeah, you do. You want to put your arm around science and give it a big old hug, don't you, Adam?
I've even gave him a gender.
Can I just do a little test with Adam? You say red lorry, yellow lorry, red lorry, yellow lorry. Can you do that for me?
Your mics don't quite say again.
Say red lorry, yellow lorry, red lorry, yellow lorry. Try that.
Oh no, red lorry, yellow lorry. Yeah,
not bad. I estimate 3 glasses of wine.
Oh no, bottle and half, mate. This is why I'm late. I was watching Forest play, but we've won. So yeah.
Is this the new sobriety test?
I can't say that anyway. You know what I mean? But...
He couldn't say it straight.
It was the science is our friend that gave you away. Oh, science is you're my friend. You are.
Yeah, I'm not going to deny the inebriation, but no, that's more just the sarcastic point. And genuinely, is to make the point that science was portrayed as our enemy. Science is the destroyer of our stupid thoughts about a flat Earth. Yeah, that isn't the reality. Science disproves every bit that they bring to the table, and in a lot of cases, what we have to show them is that what they are bringing to the table isn't science; it's pseudoscience.
Yeah, because they claim that science proves the globe.
Yep. Yes, they do. That's what they've been saying the whole time. If you believe, I don't believe. If you believe in the flat earth, then you must deny all of science and all of physics. That's what it was. That was my mandate to destroy all the Baltards. Very simple, very easy. All right.
And how times have changed. I mean, now it is very much the case that if you're a science believer, you're on the side of flat earth. You're in the understanding that you've got the empiricism behind you. That's what Adam means realistically when he says science is on our side or our friend. Yeah, empirical method of proving naturally occurring phenomena. That's on our side. That's on the flat earth side. It definitely isn't, although it's continually claimed to be, on the globe side. If you're rounding out, can I go first and say, check out my show that's running now on Nathan Oakley channel, so Flat Earth Debate, brand new, uncut and after show. Be here or be sphere. I'll spam the link. But that's me done then, and you can go on to everyone else.
That was quick. Yeah, we're going to end it right there. Betty, any final admin and final thoughts?
No final admin. I think that was a great show, right? I think that you really went down into the nitty-gritty. That was good.
Yep, thank you. And we're going to get more nitty-gritty as the weeks go by. Because like I said, I'm not going anywhere else. I'm dropping anchor right here. So, take no prisoners. No quarter will be asked. None shall be given. And remember, I'll be back.